right, 20 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry for all the commercials there. We were trying to get things set up, and hopefully we have them set up. I think you're going to find this next interview one of the most interesting ones, certainly of today, maybe in a while. Robin, where do you hear this? I don't know if you know this part of this or not. You are from Cudahy, Wisconsin.
Yes, I am.
All right, this story has a Cudahy, Wisconsin connection. I don't know if you know that or not. On August 5th, 2012, a mass shooting took place at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Do you know where that is?
Yes, I do. My goddaughter lives there.
40-year-old Wade Michael Page fatally shot 6 people and wounded 4 others. Page committed suicide by shooting himself in the head after he was shot in the hip by a responding police officer. He was an American white supremacist and an Army veteran from Cudahy. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, now, one of the people who he killed was the father of one of our guests. And one of our other guests also says, and I hope I don't have this one wrong, that he himself was a white supremacist, right? A skinhead? Mm-hmm. And forgive me, gentlemen, if I've got this wrong. Arno Michaelis works with the organization Serve to Unite. And Pardeep Singh Kaleka, his father, is one of the people who was killed in that shooting. Pardeep is a former police officer, by the way. The book that the two men have written is called The Gift of Our Wounds. A Sikh and a former white supremacist find forgiveness after hate. Arno Michaelis and Pardeep Singh Kaleka, thank you for being on the air with us today.
Thank you, Larry and Robin. It's our pleasure.
Okay. Are you both in the same place? Where are you guys?
I'm in Mequon, Wisconsin, and Pardeep's in Milwaukee. We're calling in from 2 different lines.
Okay, where are you, Arno? Where are you?
I'm in a northern suburb of Milwaukee called Mequon.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Pardeep, we're so sorry about this. This has had to have been an unbelievably heartbreaking moment for you.
Yes, it was. I mean, sometimes you view the news and you sometimes watch it and say, well, that's not me, but this definitely reinforced that it could be anybody.
Oh, my gosh. Tell us. And Arno, you've changed your ways completely. Do you remember hearing this news? I mean, you live close to where this happened.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I left hate groups in 1994, but it took a long time before I was ready to share that story publicly, which I started doing in 2010. I'll never forget August 5th, 2012, hearing of the shooting, and before it was even announced that it was a white supremacist shooter, I just had this kind of sinking feeling that I had something to do with this.
Oh, wow. And how did you end up becoming a white supremacist at that earlier in your life? How did that happen? What kind of things were you being taught? I have to assume that somebody taught you how to hate.
Yeah, that's a common assumption, actually, Larry. But in reality, neither of my parents were racist whatsoever. I was just a angry, suffering, rebellious kid, and I wanted to lash out at society. And nothing makes people angry like a swastika. It was really like the shock value that attracted me to the white supremacist ideology, much more so than any kind of like conditioning that I had beforehand. I grew up in a nice house, nice neighborhood. Robin knows Mequon's a pretty swanky suburb, and really had everything going for me. But because there's alcoholism in my household, my mother was always stressed out by my dad, and she was really miserable all the time. That made me miserable. So I started lashing out at other kids, and as I grew older, I just got this habit to cause trouble and make people angry. And by the time I'm 16, I'm drinking myself. I've been violent for a long time, and that's when I heard white power skinhead music that just like gave me this thrill of this is what I've been looking for all my life, and look how angry it makes people, and look how it makes me feel like I'm this warrior fighting for my people. It was very seductive.
And somehow people who have that mindset feel that they can actually identify who their enemy is by the color of their skin or by their religion.
Yeah, it's really it's an easy way out of everything. A real common issue with people getting involved, not only in white supremacist groups, but any kind of violent extremism, is that it's much easier to blame all your problems on everybody else on Earth, especially if it's a monolithic group that you can identify by skin color, or that you can identify yourself as a good guy by your skin color.
Yes.
It's easier to do that than it is to do the work on yourself that it takes to improve your life. It's much easier to blame always.
Yeah. Pardeep, tell me about your childhood.
My childhood was, it's kind of your typical immigrant childhood. My parents came here in 1982, and here is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We immigrated from a small farming village in India. Much of the same motivation that most immigrants have is that they wanted a better life for their children. They wanted a better life for themselves. They wanted an opportunity. And definitely at that time, America was advertised as the land of opportunity. So as we immigrated here, the reality was my father had, he was a turban-wearing Sikh, very traditional, didn't have much of an education. My mom only had graduated from 5th grade. She barely spoke English, very traditional. So the opportunity was very scarce for them. They scratched, they clawed, they climbed their way to economic success, and really by the time that August 5th had come around, really had almost achieved this American dream. In fact, about a month before my dad's birthday came about a couple months before August 5th, and he was really joking how he was 65 years old and able to finally have insurance and collect Social Security, and only to be kind of told that this American dream or immigrant dream or what have you is not really meant for people like you. And I think that is the scariest part of it, is that me and Arno, when we came together, we did not want people to believe that. We wanted to create an inclusive culture that says, no, this American dream is an immigrant dream, and it really belongs to all of us, and it belongs. We have the responsibility of making sure that truth overrides this hate incident, and that truth comes out even after this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And most reasonable people realize that the opportunity is the gold. It doesn't mean you automatically win the prize. It doesn't mean you automatically are successful. It means you have an opportunity to try something and maybe fail at it. But a lot of people think they're due something, whether they are immigrants or they were born here. I think you see both of that. So tell me about, before we talk about how you guys got together to write the book, tell me about Serve to Unite. What is that? That's an organization you started, Pardeep? Mm-hmm. Tell me, when did you start this?
It started as an inspiration to what happened on August 5th, really as an act of defiance against the action itself. And when I say the action itself, we can do something against the action and saying, what this action was to divide. This action was to separate ourselves. This action was to cause fear. So the defining part of Serve to Unite was, we're not going to, we're going to use the 6 principles that are our service and this idea of oneness, basically that all of human creation has the same source, has the same God, and bringing people together through service and through learning about one another and really building an inclusive culture going forward. We saw that we maybe, as a community, we didn't have the same adjustment period that other communities might have, as far as before people were able to integrate and assimilate through time. And so the Irish became, Americans over time. The Germans, the Polish, whoever is had time to basically assimilate. We realized that in the year 2012 and 2018, that doesn't exist anymore, and you must assimilate much quicker, and you're not allowed that time frame. So we said, how do we ease this demographic change trauma that we're seeing, this pain of cultures changing, and how do immigrants, refugees, and people really become part of the broader culture quicker, meaning that they don't have to give up what's unique to them, but really like teaching people who they are and what they represent to the American fabric. So we knew that we had to lead by example, and so we said, you know what, instead of people waiting for people to come to us, we will go out to people.
Yeah, and I think assimilating shouldn't mean that we all become the same. I think it means we all live in harmony, even though we're different. I mean, look at the African American community. They have their own culture. They've been here for hundreds of years, and there's no need for people to assimilate so that we all eat the same food, or we all listen to the same music, or we all go to the same church. It's a matter of respecting the differences. How did this trickle down to you, Arno? How did you become of the same mindset that Pardeep was just expressing?
Well, when I left hate groups in 1994, and within a couple of years, I found myself in the rave scene. So whereas I was attacking people because of the color of their skin, drinking beer, and being this rowdy white power skinhead, a couple of years later, I'm a rowdy goer of underground techno parties on the south side of Chicago, where 3,000 people of every single ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background are shaking their butts to house music together at 4 in the morning on Sunday. And I highly recommend it, actually. For people.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was a really powerful, informative time for me. A lot of people in the rave scene, everybody I ever met, forgave me and accepted me, even when I still had swastikas tattooed on me, which I since had covered up. But this example that they set for me, first of all, how human beings should treat each other, and second of all, how beautiful diversity is, has really put me in a place where, to this day, my rave days have long since passed. I'm kind of too old for that stuff, but still love the music. But nowadays I do a ton of traveling, and I really just thrive in diverse environments. It makes me giddy. I'm like a dude from Animal House. I'm like, oh boy, is this great!
So
I find a diverse environment. Like New York City is one of my favorite places. I was just there, just walking around Manhattan. It's beautiful, and it's not just a thrill, and it's not just beautiful for the sake of diversity, but when you have a diverse population, and if it's a good example, if you're trying to solve a problem and you have a diverse team of people looking at that problem, all the different perspectives make you better able to solve that problem. So it's literally healthier for society on all kinds of levels. And I'm really delighted that Pardeep reached out to me in October of 12, and that he invited me to help spread that message to society via Serve to Unite.
And did you write your book, Life After Hate, before or after you met Pardeep, and was it good therapy for you?
Yeah, my first book's called My Life After Hate, and I published it on my daughter's birthday in 2010. And I started writing in 2007, and it was very much, it was out of self-preservation. I quit drinking in 2004, and a couple years later I found myself in this morose suicidal depression because my past had come rushing up to consume me. Without substances to numb it, all the harm that I had done to other people was just keeping me up at night. It was killing me, and I felt like it should kill me. I felt like I deserved to suffer, but to save my life, and told me I needed to snap out of it, and I did that through writing. So just the process of writing about my past and how I feel about it now and what I've learned from it and what happened, it was a really important part of my journey forward. And it's not to say that I won't be haunted by the harm I've done for the rest of my life, but now, thanks to people like Pardeep, I understand that if I don't forgive myself, it diminishes my ability to help other people. So self-forgiveness is a constant process I'll be going through, and I go through it not just for my own sake, but for Pardeep's sake. I wouldn't be much use to him in his healing process if I was still busy hating myself, as I did in 2007 before I started writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you guys speaking for young people, in schools, etc.? Are you going to places together?
Yeah, yesterday actually in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. It's this small, predominantly white town about 20 miles southwest of Madison. Pardeep and I did a talk. We had 800 students there, and the degree to which these young people were engaged with our story was just, it was very humbling and honoring. We got a couple big standing ovations, and that always brings tears to our eyes. And just the ability to share that story with young people, it's such a gift. And to kind of get that message of service and unity out to people via the Serve to Unite organization is it's really the greatest thing that we could ask for in life. I'm incredibly, every day of my life nowadays, I'm grateful that I'm not who I used to be, and I'm all the more grateful that I am who I am now, and I get to do amazing things like speak to high school students with Pardeep.
Years ago, Robert and I did music, and one of the songs was "The only thing uglier than hate is hate passed on to children." So you are not passing it on to your children, and I'm wondering if you guys can predict the future. Are we going to see a less hateful world, or are there more Arno Michaelises out there who have not passed this on to their children?
Yeah, I think, even piggybacking off of what Arno said with yesterday's sort of talk at the school. Yesterday's talk, there was a 2-hour, it was pretty much a 2-hour talk. And when the kids came in, this is about 800, 900 kids. And they came in kind of like, in their own little worlds, and they were talking, and we were really like, how do you keep, kids engaged for 2 hours? Mm-hmm. And after the talk was done, a reporter from Madison came up to us and said, and she says, that was 2 hours, and kids did not talk. They did not do anything. I mean, they were really engaged. How do you talk to kids at that age? Yeah. At that age about such a serious topic? And I basically told her, I said, we rip open these wounds, and we really speak from the heart, mm-hmm. and everything that's said is from the heart. And kids, no matter what age level you're at or academic level you're at, when somebody speaks from the heart, then the heart listens. And there is probably more Arno Michaelises out there. There's definitely more people who are suffering. There's people who are going through things that are incredibly tragic. And if we don't speak to them from the heart, to the heart, we will not be effective.
Absolutely. Well said. Do you... Let's see, I had a question and I just dropped it. The fact that you could hold those kids' attention for 2 hours is amazing. Oh, I know what I want to say. It seems like the news doesn't represent what we see. And I've said this a lot of times, that the news makes it seem like there's such a racial divide in this country, and yet in my own world, I don't see it. I mean, I don't see my black friends hating me because I'm white, or my white friends hating black people. I don't see it. I'm not saying it's not out there. I just don't see it. And there was an interesting story in USA Today that was saying that a lot of the advertisements that Russia bought on Facebook were to instigate a racial divide. It was I don't know if you ever saw that story, but if you can Google it, you'll see it was just like a month ago or so. They went through all the advertisements. I don't know. I think sometimes there are powers bigger than us that try to manipulate us, and I'm not saying that's what happened to you, Arno. I don't know, but I'm so glad you guys are doing what you're doing. The book is called The Gift of Our Wounds. It's getting really good reviews on Amazon. And when did the book come out?
The book came out April 10th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're super excited to bring this book to the world. Everything Pardeep and I do is storytelling driven. And speaking of the media, as you pointed out, Larry, I really believe that, this sounds kind of existential, but it's my feeling that the media, our government, all these bigger structures in our society are really just manifestations of our collective social consciousness. So if our collective social consciousness has an element of fear in it, it has an element of loathing, like the media is going to show that to us. I believe it's a mirror. And in the days of social media, big outlets like CNN and even USA Today, like they literally get their stories by what's trending on Twitter or trending on in Facebook. And as you pointed out, there was hard evidence that this Russian interference in our election and our society was really meant to just sow division. So in that respect, I don't deny that there may be actually like forces or powers that are trying to do that, but it's important to understand that we have the ability to fight back by saying we're not going to give up in humanity. And like you said, to really believe that we are one as a group of human beings, and that when we come from that foundation, we can see our differences and celebrate them and see them as assets rather than something to fear.
Arno, I don't know if you could ever go back in time and talk to your younger self, but I think he would be surprised to see who you are now, and thank God that you are. I think you're probably a happier person because of those changes.
Well, every time I do a talk, somebody comes up to me and says, well, I'm really glad you changed, and I really appreciate that, but my response every time is like, nobody is happier about this change than I am. It sucks. It sucks to live that way. And what I would say to my younger self is the same thing I say to people in hate groups today, which is, I've lived your life. I've lived that life of hate and violence and paranoia and ignorance and cowardness for 7 years of my life. Today, I go everywhere that they're terrified to go, and I do it joyfully, and people welcome me, and I see family, that I see my fellow human beings, and I love them, and they love me, and I would not change. I would not go back with a gun to my head. There's nothing that could make me go back, because the life I'm living now is literally one of joy and gratitude as opposed to one of fear and ignorance.
Wonderfully said. Arno Michaelis and Pardeep Singh Kaleka, thank you both for what you're doing. You are both making this world a better place, one school full at a time, I think. Thank you both for what you're doing and for taking time to be on our show today. Good luck with the book, by the way. Oh, give us a website.
Our website is serve2unite.org with the number 2, and the book can actually be found at giftofourwounds.com.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Rob.
We'll be right back.
Take care.
There are only a few things in life that you can be